In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the North African desert, where the sun beats down like a hammer and horizons shimmer with deceit, a different kind of war was fought. This was not a war of massive armies clashing in open battle, but a shadow war, waged by ghosts in the sand. In late 1942, as the British Eighth Army, under General Montgomery, tightened its grip on Axis forces, one of Germany's most legendary commanders, Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, sanctioned a plan of audacious daring. A mission so secret, so perilous, its failure meant not just capture, but certain execution. This is the story of Operation Kondor. The strategic situation for the Axis in North Africa was becoming desperate. Allied supply lines stretching from the ports of Egypt were a torrent of fuel, ammunition, and men feeding the relentless advance of Montgomery's forces. Rommel knew that to halt this tide, he couldn't just fight it head-on. He had to sever its source. The plan was as simple as it was bold: send a small, elite unit deep behind enemy lines to wreak havoc on the British supply chain. They would become a phantom menace, a ghost convoy striking from the heart of enemy territory. The unit chosen for this task was comprised of Brandenburgers, Germany's premier special forces. These men were not just soldiers, they were masters of deception, language, and survival. They were trained to operate independently, to blend in, to become the enemy. For Operation Kondor, their transformation had to be absolute. They were to become British. Captured British trucks, scout cars, and jeeps were meticulously prepared. Every detail, from the unique markings on the vehicles to the wear and tear on the canvas covers, was replicated with German precision. The soldiers themselves donned captured British uniforms, their pockets filled with British cigarettes and pay books. They learned the slang of the Tommies, the casual salute, the weary posture of a soldier far from home. They were becoming ghosts, shedding their identities to haunt the desert. Their objective was a series of vital fuel and supply depots hundreds of miles inside British-controlled Egypt. To reach them, they would have to navigate a sea of sand patrolled by the vigilant long-range desert group, the masters of desert reconnaissance. The Brandenburgers' journey was a masterclass in stealth and endurance. They traveled primarily at night, the stars their only constant guide. During the day, they would find a wadi or a rocky outcrop, camouflaging their vehicles and themselves, lying motionless under the scorching sun, listening to the drone of British patrol planes overhead. Every distant engine sound, every dust cloud on the horizon sent a jolt of adrenaline through the men. Was it a lost British patrol? A scout plane that had spotted them? The psychological tension was immense. They were utterly alone, a tiny island of deception in a vast ocean of hostility. Communication was their lifeline and their greatest vulnerability. Only short, coded bursts, transmitted at irregular intervals, could be used to report their progress or receive new orders. A single, prolonged transmission could be triangulated, bringing the entire weight of the Eighth Army down upon them. They relied on Rommel's grand strategy, trusting that their small part played into a larger-than-seen design. The desert itself became both an enemy and an ally. Sandstorms, which could blind and disorient even the most experienced desert travelers, provided perfect cover. They navigated by compass and dead reckoning, their lives depending on the accuracy of their calculations. Water was rationed with painstaking care. Every drop was more precious than gold. After weeks of this grueling, nerve-shredding infiltration, they reached their operational area. Now, the mission entered its most dangerous phase. They began to move among the British supply convoys, hiding in plain sight. Imagine the sheer audacity. A column of German special forces, disguised as British soldiers, driving captured British trucks, joining the very supply lines they intended to destroy. The risk of discovery was constant. A single misplaced German phrase, A non-regulation piece of equipment, a suspicious glance from a seasoned British officer, any of these could unravel the entire operation. They were spies, and the penalty for espionage was a firing squad. No questions asked. The strikes were swift and brutal. Under the cover of darkness, they would detach from a convoy, descend upon a lightly guarded fuel dump, and plant their explosives. The ensuing fireballs would light up the desert night, sowing confusion and panic. They would then melt back into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of destruction and mystery. To the British, these attacks seemed to be the work of phantoms. Reports spoke of sabotage, but no one could identify the culprits. They were striking at will, disrupting the flow of fuel that was the lifeblood of Montgomery's armored divisions. For weeks, Operation Kondor was a stunning success. The Brandenburgers crippled key supply routes, forcing British units to halt their advance, rationing fuel and awaiting resupply. The psychological impact was just as significant, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and uncertainty behind the British front lines. Rommel's Ghost Convoy had achieved its goal, but their luck could not last forever. As the main front shifted and the larger battle for North Africa reached its climax, the small unit found its own supply lines dwindling and its window for exfiltration closing. Their mission complete, the Brandenburgers faced their final and perhaps most difficult challenge, the long, treacherous journey back to German lines. They were hunted now. The British, furious and determined, were scouring the desert for the saboteurs. The return journey was a desperate race against time, with British patrols closing in. They fought small, sharp skirmishes, using their superior training and the element of surprise to break through cordons and evade capture. Not all of them made it back. Some were lost to the desert, others to enemy action. But the survivors who did return brought with them a story of incredible courage, discipline, and military precision. Operation Kondor remains one of the lesser-known but most remarkable special operations of the Second World War. It was a testament to the effectiveness of long-range tactics and the profound psychological pressure of deep infiltration warfare. It showcased the discipline and skill of a unit operating at the absolute limit of human endurance, deep in hostile territory with no hope of reinforcement. These men were not just soldiers, they were shadows, playing a deadly game of cat and mouse in one of history's most unforgiving theaters of war. Their story is a stark reminder that in the grand narrative of war, some of the most pivotal battles are fought not by armies, but by a handful of determined men in the dark. If this hidden story moved you, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More forgotten heroes are waiting to be remembered.